It's been 3 months since the S22 Ultra launched, and for those of us outside of the US, we've had to put up with some pretty bad performance issues. But have those issues now been fixed? As you may already be aware, I'm a lifelong iPhone user who's getting a little bit bored of the never-changing iPhone and seeing Android phones with features like the S22's 10 times to 100 times camera, the Google Pixel's voice assistant, and of course all of the customization features available to all Android phones. Well, it just keeps making me want to switch to Android to experience this life without shackles. TLDR, I'm basically an idiot who doesn't know Android, who keeps trying Android. Now, I'm not going to rehash what I said in my first review, but instead I'm just going to focus on any differences now, 3 months later, with this phone to see if anything's actually changed. Has it actually gotten any better? So we're going to do the good, the bad, and answer the overall question of whether this phone has gotten any better. Firstly, I'm going to address the big question that everyone's going to be wondering, and it was the biggest problem with this phone when I last reviewed it, and actually it was why I sent it back to Samsung and had to rebuy this phone all over again, which is how is the Exynos chip holding up compared to the Snapdragon? Now, I was glad to see that a ton of you were also seeing the exact same issues with the Exynos being slow and sometimes unusable, but those comments have died down a little recently, so I wonder. Maybe... And the answer is a noticeable improvement over 3 months ago. But with one caveat, because whilst the overall interface does feel snappy, it doesn't hesitate anymore and I'm yet to experience any random slowdowns like I did before. I have also switched away from using the default launcher on here, and instead I'm using the Nova launcher, which is like the paid for version. It costs a couple of bucks or so. But for me, and along with 1Password, these are the first 2 apps I install onto every single Android phone. And a quick mention there is 50% off a 1Password subscription down below if you need that, so thank you to 1Password for supporting the channel, appreciate you. But just having the Nova launcher installed unlocks this whole level of customization that you just don't get on any stock Android phone. So with Nova, you can set app icons to do different things when you swipe up and down on them, which then makes my entire home screen even less cluttered. You can launch apps or do certain things when using certain gestures. And to fix the biggest issue that I had with my last S22 Ultra, which is still an issue to this day, unfortunately, of just wanting to be able to swipe up and instantly jump to the search bar, you can do that with Nova. Now, you can do that on the stock OS, but only if you have the homepage set to home only, and even then, it's still, yes, even 3 months later, feels slow. And putting them side by side with an iPhone or even the S22 Plus, you can see the speed differences between the Nova launcher and the stock Samsung one. Kind of weird why a third-party app can do it better and faster than the stock Android app, but it is what it is. And there is just a ton of other options to customize and personalize your phone at the moment that iPhone just can't compete with. Now, I would say that the new lock screen customization features coming to iOS 16 do feel a lot better and are really nice and do work really well. The widgets I find just work a lot better, but as we know, that is just cherry picking 1 or 2 things that the iPhone does better in, like in terms of customization at least, when Android can basically do anything in terms of customization. Now, iPhone has this habit of being very, very late to the party on like many things, but when they do get there, they'll implement it really, really well, and personally I feel that's the case here with the lock screen. But whilst we're here, it's worth noting that on basically all of my Android phones, I always go into developer settings by going into About, Software, and tapping the build number a few times, then go into those settings to change the animation speed from 1 times to 0.5 times, just to speed the whole thing up that little bit more. And it's not just the interface that seems to improve doing the same kind of side-by-side comparisons with my iPhone 13 Pro. It is pretty much exactly the same as the iPhone in terms of app launching, and mostly it just depends on how well the app utilizes the available memory, because a few of the Android apps actually launch like repeatedly faster than the iPhone versions. The one thing that does still annoy me though with this whole interface is the gesture navigation to switch apps. So if I just show you here, pick up my iPhone, to change apps, I can just swipe across the bottom and the apps pretty seamlessly change. Whereas if I do the same thing on an Android phone, pretty much any Android phone, but specifically the S22, it's really just hit and miss. You have to kind of drag it up and hold it and then you can swipe. Whereas you can't swipe across the bottom. If you go into an app and you want to swipe to the next one, you have to make sure you do this kind of curved thing. You can't just swipe across the bottom that well because it just doesn't really work properly. Before we move on though, I am doing a giveaway of a brand new iPhone 13 Pro to 1 lucky person, and all you have to do to enter this worldwide giveaway, weird torch issue, is comment down below what tech you're looking forward to buying this year. Then once the channel hits 50,000 subscribers, I'm going to post a video to announce the winner of this iPhone 13 Pro. So make sure you don't miss that video to find out if you've won, and that is literally all there is to it. The next thing to talk about is the S Pen, and I still believe that this is a bit of a Marmite accessory. To die-hard Samsung Note fans, of course, it is an essential tool, or as this lovely commenter put it, if you don't think it's useful, then I should ask lawyer how useful the pen is for urgent noting. So, if there are any lawyers out there right now, is this crazy guy right? I am finding myself using it more than I normally would, but mainly because I feel like I'm forcing myself to use something that I've obviously paid for. But were the choice there, I would probably opt to buy an S22 Ultra without the S Pen. So basically buy the S22 Plus, except this year's S22 Plus, you then lose out on some of the other features like the cameras on there. So you're basically stuck with the S Pen, whether you like it or not. But the most useful thing I have found has been for taking photos, like using the pen as a remote shutter button, which actually brings me to a new accessory, and one that I didn't have when I last reviewed the S22. And this isn't a sponsor thing, they are legitimately something that I've come across that I've really enjoyed using. Now these cases are amazing, so much so that I have one for my own iPhone Pro, my wife's iPhone, and now I have them for the S22 Ultra and the S22 Plus. It really just makes the Ultra fit back into my daily workflows. They're basically really sticky magnetic cases that let you stick your phone to any metal surface, and they can wirelessly charge too. Basically it's like MagSafe for iPhone brought to the S22 Ultra. So if you're at the gym, you can just stick your phone in front of you whilst you're working out to watch a video or track your workout. If you're out and about and want a quick photo, then you find a metal surface, grab your S Pen, stick the phone to the metal surface, and then use the S Pen to snap away. Like honestly, it's so practical for me, and I have a bunch of like other Magbak accessories like chargers, this wallet as well that sticks onto the back, really sticks to the back. And you can even get these tiny magnetic strips that you can just stick like anywhere that you want to stick your phone but isn't metal, and it really sticks to the phone. It's difficult to get off. And if magnetic cases just, aren't your thing, which is fine, then before that I was using these kind of selections of cases from Rhino Shield, which are basically just some cases for the S22 Ultra, S22 Plus, and just have a few different patterns on them. So yeah, just use them, switch them up as I felt like them, depending on the day. And I'm not really much of a case reviewer, but let me know if you want to know more. But for now, I'll just leave a few links down below to all of these, and you can pick one up for yourself if you like them. Dext is next up, which is like a flagship feature of many Samsung phones and tablets. But in reality, and kind of like the S Pen and also multitasking, I just don't find myself needing to use those features. I'm fortunate enough here to be surrounded by technology, so if I really needed a tablet, I'd get a tablet, or if I want a desktop-like experience, I just pick up my iPad, or my laptop rather. Genuine question here, if you own a phone with Dext built into it, do you actually use it? I know a ton of people with this phone, and not a single one of them actually uses Dext. I'll admit, it's a really cool feature, and I've just picked up the new Samsung M8 32-inch display where, yeah, it's quite cool to be able to bring my phone content onto the screen wirelessly. I just don't find it that practical to use. I've also never been in a situation yet where I'm out and about and decide that I want to, dock my phone to do desktop type stuff. I guess maybe if I'm in a pinch, but even then, like, I've got my phone plugged into a screen, and now what? Like, I have to use the phone as the keyboard and mouse? It's not really that easy to multitask when all you have is this like 6-inch screen to use, whereas you really need a separate keyboard, a separate mouse to be able to actually and efficiently multitask. So whilst it is a great feature, and I really want to see this technology like improve over the years, it's not just something I have the need for just yet. Cameras are next, and actually as an iPhone user, I was really looking forward to getting back onto this phone because of that 10 times telephoto camera, and having just come from the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV that's a 5 times optical zoom lens, but overheats after literally 2 minutes of using it, RIP Sony. So I am really glad to finally have the ability to use a 10 times fixed lens again, just to punch into areas where you can't physically get closer, like at sporting events or your kids running around and not sitting still. The only thing I find myself doing is having to decide whether I want to shoot using the 3 times lens and maybe crop in a little bit and lose a bit of detail, or jump straight for that 10 times kind of zoom lens, which might be a little bit too close, but just captures all of the extra detail that digitally zoomed 3 times just won't. And even with their crazy 100 times zoom, you can still comfortably get to like 80 times before the image completely starts falling apart. Though honestly, I've never needed to zoom in that far personally, but it just goes to show the incredible power that you can fit into one of these phones nowadays. I've also come to, I think, prefer the S22's photos over the iPhone. which is a really odd feeling, but the more and more I use the Android phones in general, I think really, the more aware I'm becoming that the iPhone just really heavily over-processes images, and often to the stage where I just don't think it's a nice image to post. I think I personally prefer the more saturated images that the Pixel 6 produces, but as far as things go, I'm starting to really notice the differences and improvements on the S22 over the iPhone now that I've been using this phone again for a little while. The portrait video, also really enjoying this. Like I mentioned in my last video, I find it to be so much better than the iPhone cinematic video. Like, admittedly, it's not got the clever AI processing for knowing who to focus on based on where the subject's looking, but I take a vastly better image quality over like this fuzzy, blurry kind of mess of an image with those kind of clever autofocus kind of features. Though, speaking of fuzzy and blurry, both the iPhone and S22 Ultra really don't deliver great slow motion footage. Like, having just come from, yes, this Sony Xperia phone that does overheat, but it does shoot 4K 120 FPS with autofocus and does it really, really well, just not for anything more than 2 minutes. But, and there's always a but, I like big shutter lag is a thing with the S22 Ultra, and it can be really, really annoying at times. Now, this does seem to be quite polarizing because I've seen a lot of people very, very strongly argue that there isn't shutter lag, but there is. Blatantly is. I can pick up my phone and try and snap some pictures in quick succession, and only a handful of pictures will actually get taken. The rest of the time it's delayed or skipped like completely because the phone is trying to, I guess, like recalculate what light is available or what the focus is or the color, or I don't know what it's doing. Whatever it's doing, it's slow. I've replicated this in all sorts of different environments. I was in a restaurant with some friends who had different Android phones. We had the S22 Ultra, the S21 Ultra, the Sony Xperia one that I was playing with, a OnePlus phone, and all of them were slower than the iPhone, which just captured shots instantly, even in a lower light situation. And that is a key difference for me with an iPhone. I know I can pick up my iPhone, point it at something, and other than like perhaps an act of God, it's gonna snap a reasonable photo. Try the same thing with the S22 Ultra, and it's about a 95% chance it's gonna work, and about a 50-50 chance it's not gonna have any shutter lag at all. So yeah, great, incredible cameras with some really, really unique features that I love, but reliability still needs some work, even with all the software updates we've had after 3 months of this phone's release. iMessage is, of course, one of the biggest, like, oh my god, what do I do when it comes to switching to Android? And I have, like, semi-cheated here because since switching to Android, rather than worry about what to do, I just found a service that lets me to keep my blue bubble things whilst also using my Android. Now, that service is called Beeper. It cost me $10 a month. Expensive, I know, for some, but for $10, it doesn't just let me send iMessages. It literally centralizes all of my messaging service like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Slack, Discord, SMS, so many others, and yes, also iMessage. So for those of you who do want to switch to Android, but iMessage is literally like the one and only thing that's keeping you from doing so, then I would check out Beeper, and I'd at least get registered on the wait list because there is a bit of a waiting list, and you can always then decide not to pay for it once you reach like the top of the queue. But for me, honestly, it is well worth it. And I'm finding that over time, most of my iPhone contacts have already moved over to other messaging platforms like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, and I know all of those have their own like privacy issues, but for most day-to-day messages, I really couldn't care less what messaging platform I use. So over time, iMessage itself is just becoming less and less of a barrier. So unless you want to pay for something that brings like all of your messages together like I have, why not just go and ask those iPhone friends and say to message you on WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or just something else? Because there is a high probability that they're already on those platforms and using them with their other friends already. A quick pit stop on battery life now, and having used this phone for a few weeks now, I can honestly say that the battery life does get better. There's this like thing with Android phones where in the first 2 weeks, the phones are actually like learning your phone's usage and adapting the power accordingly, and it really, really does make a difference. Like in the first couple of weeks, I was really struggling to make it a full day with this battery, but fast forward beyond 2 weeks now, I'm generally left anywhere between 5 to like 20%, depending on how heavily I use the phone that day. So if you do watch any videos that say like, and I've done some of these, hey, I've had this phone for 2 weeks, and also I think the battery life's trash, they may not be that accurate. The size of the phone, let's talk about the size of the phone for a minute. This is a big phone. Like if you're coming from an iPhone Pro Max, then it's probably going to be okay. If you're going from an iPhone Pro or smaller, this is a giant phone. Like it's not something you can really use with one hand, not unless you want to really risk dropping it, I guess. It's definitely a two-hander job, which is definitely what she said, and yes, I am still 12 years old. But personally, I do wish that the S22 Ultra was in the shape of the S22 Plus, which I just find it's more comfortable to use and hold, and of course you don't get the telephoto and you don't get the pen either, if that makes a difference. Other minor annoyances that got me in the first review: the mute, or missing, rather lack of, the mute toggle switch. Like, Android has this feature that lets you individually control the volume for notifications, for phone calls, and for media, and by default, the volume switch only controls like one of those. I think it's the media one. The issue I had was that I would turn the volume all the way down, or so I thought, then I'd get a loud notification whilst on a video call or something else, or recording a video, when what I should have done is open the phone up, swipe down, tap mute, and been done with it. But that's still a bit of a faff over what we get with the iPhone, which is a simple switch, which is now muted. So what you can do on Android to fix that is just change the default behavior of the volume. So you can mute the phone as long as the phone's unlocked whilst you move the volume slider, which still kind of sucks, but it solves most of the problem for me. Over to the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4, which honestly, it still feels sluggish at times, still have issues using it when it's wet, and it just doesn't feel as robust to use as an Apple Watch. Like, I am very interested to see what the new Pixel Watch looks like, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to get a first look at that one. But I have enjoyed using the smaller kind of form factor, and I'd say more comfortable to wear than the Apple Watch as well. Now, this is comparing the smallest Galaxy Watch 4 versus, I don't even have it in the room now, versus the larger Apple Watch Series 7. So it's not really a fair comparison, but it's definitely solidified my thoughts of getting the next Apple Watch is going to be the smaller model instead of the bigger model. Back to the phone, and now pricing is also one area where just Apple cannot compete. Like, because even at the launch, the S22 Ultra had some very attractive discounts. Like, maybe not on the phone itself, but if you bought the phone, then you got some free earbuds and discounts on like other devices and accessories. And it's no different now. Buy an S22 Ultra and you can get 6 or maybe 12 months of Disney Plus for free. You also get 15% off of Galaxy Buds, tablets, or watches. And if you join the Samsung Rewards program, you can get 1% back in points on like every purchase. But it's not just that. I checked with my affiliate link provider, which, you know, there are links to buy these phones, which I'll add below, of course, which give you up to £240 off of the S22 Ultra. And there's another one in there that also gives you a 10% off everything, plus a further 5% if you spend more than like £2,000, which I guess is more if you're buying washing machines and laptops and more expensive things. Now, those are just prices and deals that Apple won't and can't compete on. Like, Apple's price is Apple's price. Like, other than a tiny few percent discount for business or maybe student purchases, and of course their refurbished store, there's no way that I see Apple ever offering a discount on buying an iPhone. The question of all questions, though, is, of all the phones I've had the pleasure of kind of using and testing recently, if I had to give up the iPhone, which one would I switch to? And it's a really tough one. Like, the S22 Ultra is definitely one of the flagship phones of the year, even though it's basically a note. The S22 Plus also isn't too far behind either, and there'll be an updated video on that one coming soon. And to throw a spanner into the works, I actually really like the Google Pixel experience as well, and you can see my thoughts on the Pixel after 6 months right here.